Hello, and thank you for joining me for this practice today. I'm Rachel. If this is your first time here, if you're returning, thank you for being here yet again. This is going to be a yin practice today, so we're going to stay very close to the ground. We'll be focusing on the lung meridian. If you're familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, there are meridian lines throughout the body that are all associated with different organs. So today is the lung meridian, and the lung meridian is associated with the feeling of grief and sadness. So if that's something that you are experiencing, then this practice will be wonderful for you. Even if it's not, you'll still create the opening in the space within the lung meridian and the areas of the body that we're going to be working, as well as creating space for the lungs. And if you're having any kind of upper respiratory issues, it's going to be extremely helpful for that as well. So we will start on our back. You can go ahead and come on down. And once we're here on our back, we're just going to take whatever shape feels right. So you could bring the feet together. You could let the knees drop out to the sides. You could extend your feet forward. Maybe you take a different shape with the arms here. And we're just going to begin to arrive into this moment and into this space. And just notice, pay attention to your physical body. Pay attention to any emotions that you're experiencing right now. And let's remember that with grief, it's not always sadness that we feel. Sometimes there are other emotions that can come along with it, like anger. So we'll allow ourselves to experience that full spectrum of emotions wherever you're at today. And we're just going to try to soften into the physical body, and as well as allowing ourselves to experience whatever that emotion is. We'll be looking at some different mantras throughout this practice. But as we move into a deeper breath, allowing for the belly to rise and fall here, our first mantra is, I tenderly care and love myself. I tenderly care for and love myself. So allow for that to sink in. As you move into some diaphragmatic breathing, the lung meridian moves through the diaphragm. So we want to be able to include the diaphragm within this practice. And what better way than to allow for those deeper belly breaths. So allowing for the belly to rise, the ribs to expand, and the chest to lift. And then releasing in that same pattern, belly, ribs, chest. And allowing once again for that mantra to sit here with you. I tenderly care for and love myself. I tenderly care for and love myself. And from wherever you're at, we're just going to bring the feet and ground them to the earth. If they're already there, great. But we'll start to open the arms up, so coming into some cactus arms here. I'm just feeling a bit of a widening through the chest, maybe even tucking the shoulder blades up and underneath you a bit. And we're going to begin to wrap the arms up here. So you can go ahead and take your right arm over your left and just give yourself a big hug. We're going to breathe into the shoulders as well as into the arms. And we're just going to start to windshield wiper the knees from side to side here. The next time that the knees are dropped over to your right, we will hold it here. And they're just here at this little bit of a staggered angle. Just feeling this out. The lung meridian is mostly through, well, it is up through the upper body. It does move and descend into the belly space as well, but we'll add in a little bit of lower body stuff as well, just to kind of balance us out. So let's breathe in for another breath here. And we're going to begin to open the arms back up. Go ahead and ground your feet. You're just going to scoot your hips slightly over to your left, and we'll drop the knees back over to the right as we come toward our fetal position. We'll extend this right arm forward. So extending right arm forward toward me. And our left hand is going to meet our right. We're going to add in just a little bit of slow, soft movement here before we land into our resting twist. So with this left arm, you're just going to begin to open it back up toward the earth and let it fall. And then as you exhale, left hand will meet the right. And then we'll inhale, letting left arm fall back toward the earth. And allow for it to meet the right. And this time as the left arm comes around, we'll hold here. You could keep the T shape with the arms, or once again, you could cactus. And perhaps you bring a block or a bolster between the knees if you need a little bit more support here. The gaze can go wherever you'd like, straight up toward the sky. Maybe it's over toward your left hand. And then we're going to feel those deeper belly breaths again. And wherever you feel like you need softening, you can send the breath into that space, into that area. Maybe you send that mantra into that same space, whether it's your heart, a specific body part. I tenderly care for and love myself. Maybe you're softening through the jaw, the mouth, the tongue here. You can open and close the mouth a couple of times. Feel that release. And notice anything that might come up for you. And as it does, can you just allow for that thought to pass through here? Maybe you pause on it for a brief moment and then just allow for it to pass through as you return to breath and the sensations that are showing up for you in this pose. And if you do get emotional in this practice, that is always okay. That is tenderly caring for and loving yourself. We've got another minute here. We're going to begin to come back to center, to a neutral spine. So you'll ground your feet to the earth. You'll bring your arms along the sides of the torso and just pause. This pause between postures is so important. It's called rebound and is where we take a moment to pay attention, to notice, to feel the release of that particular meridian line that we were just in, and then anything that shows up for you. We're going to open the arms back up, so we'll cactus. Once again, maybe the tips of the shoulder blades come up and underneath you slightly here. And then we'll begin to cross the left arm over the right as you hug yourself. And we're going to just windshield wiper the knees from side to side once again. And now knees will fall over to our left. We'll pause here. We're going to start to open the arms back up, and as we open the arms back up, you'll send your left arm toward the left side of your mat. We'll stack our right knee up on top of the left, and now your right hand is going to meet your left here. This right arm is going to open up into our twist and extend it out, and then as you exhale, right hand will meet the left. Inhale, right arm opens. Exhale to join, and then we'll inhale to open. We'll land here on this one, and you can keep these T-shaped arms, or you could come back into your cactus arms. Let your gaze land wherever it feels best. And if you need support here between the knees or even underneath your shoulder, maybe you add that in as well. Still feeling that belly breath here. I tenderly care for and love myself. We've got one more minute here in this shape. And we're going to start to bring the right arm back around to meet the left this time. So you'll land into your fetal pose, and we'll just pause in a rebound here. And we're gonna start to press into the palms to lift our way up. And as you lift up, we'll start to shift around toward the top of our mat, just coming into an easy seated pose into Sukhasana. Let the hands land into your lap and just pause to notice how this practice is landing into your physical body. Good. Before we move on, we're going to begin to stimulate a few of the points along this particular meridian line. So the first one is going to be to find this first point that we're going to access, which is our lung 1. We're going to take our fingers up underneath our armpit, and then just as, I'm going to do it on this side so my microphone isn't in the way. And as your thumb, wherever your thumb lands naturally, it's going to be right underneath your collarbone. You're then going to take your other hand and then just find that point here. And you can do that on the other side. So it'll be the same on both sides. And then you're going to find that point. You're going to have the hands crossed here. And we're just going to massage. So one more time, hands are going to come up underneath the armpits. It might work better with your arms crossed. Wherever the thumb is landing naturally, we're just going to bring the fingers to. So it's going to be underneath the collarbone, probably about midpoint between where the collarbone starts and ends. And then you can close down the eyes here. And we want to try to keep that consistent ebb and flow of our diaphragmatic breathing or our belly breathing through this practice, or really our 3-part breath. Let's give it another moment here. And then we'll just let the hands land into our lap. We're going to find the next point, which is going to be on the outside of the arm, so the side of the arm that the thumb is on, and right into the crease of the elbow here. So typically when we find these acupressure points that are along these meridian lines, they're a little bit tender. So you can take it with your thumb or your pointer finger, your middle finger, whatever feels best, and just massage into that space. Mine's pretty tender here. And then we're going to switch sides, so go ahead and let the left arm land, or whichever arm you haven't done, and then we will again take the fingers or the thumb into that crease of the elbow toward the outside of the arm, and then just begin to massage until you find that tender space or area. Maybe you close down the eyes here. And then we'll slowly release both hands into the lap. Let's find a deep breath. We've got one more point that we're going to access. Take a deep, full breath in. Full breath out. And now we're going to find the point. It's right on the outside edge of the thumb here, so closest to the nail bed. And you're just going to massage into this area. And then go ahead and take it to the other side. And once again, we're going to let the hands land into the lap. Maybe you feel a little bit lighter, and if not, that's okay too. Just allowing yourself to experience whatever it is that you're feeling. The next mantra that we're going to move into is, I have the courage to face this sorrow. I have the courage to face this sorrow. We're going to start to bring the hands behind the back, and then we'll interlace the fingers here. So I'm just going to turn so you can see. As we interlace the fingers, we'll bring the fists over toward our outer right hip and just begin to pull the tip of the left shoulder blade into the back as you begin to draw right ear to right shoulder. We won't stay here for quite as long as the other postures, but we're just going to feel out the front of the shoulder and into the side of the neck. You might even tilt the chin slightly toward the sky because the lung meridian, it runs straight up through the throat. You might even open and close the mouth a couple of times here. Let's give it another full breath in, full breath out. And then we'll lift through the crown of the head. We're going to slowly release. You can drop the hands back into the lap. Just take one full deep breath here. And we're going to switch sides. So interlacing the hands behind the back again. You could interlace them in the opposite direction as we bring the hands over toward the outer left hip. And if they don't come quite as far over, that's okay too. Maybe they just are landing at the low part of the back. And then we'll begin to think about drawing the tip of the shoulder blade into the back as we start to drop the left ear toward the left shoulder. Maybe you angle the chin slightly toward the sky here. Breathing into the front of the throat. Open and close the mouth. I have the courage to face this sorrow. Couple more moments here. And then we'll lift through crown of the head. Just allow for the hands to land back into the lap. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. We're going to start to shift forward onto our hands and our knees. Coming into tabletop pose. We can pass through a couple of cat-cows here, dropping belly, lifting chin. Exhaling to round our spine. Yeah, any other little movement you might need in here. You could even add some movement into the hips if you needed to pick up the knees for a moment. And add in a little bit of rotation into the hip sockets. And now we're going to begin to shift into Anahata, or our melted heart pose. So I'm going to grab my bolster as we begin to come into this pose from here. And I'm just going to bring this up underneath my chest just to give me a little bit of support since we are holding the posture for a longer period of time. So as I walk my hands forward, I'm going to let my chest land onto the bolster here. And then my forehead can land to the earth. You could also deepen this by bringing your chin to the earth, or even lessening the posture by bringing your forehead to a block here. Breathing into the front of the chest, into the armpits, all the way down the length of the arms here. The lung meridian also runs down from the clavicle to the top of the shoulder, down through the top of the arm toward the thumb. I have the courage to face this sorrow. Also remembering that our grief can come from many different things. It could come from the loss of someone, or a relationship, or a job. Sometimes we experience grief when we're not even realizing that we are. We've got just about 1 more minute. So you could stay as you are if you want to deepen the pose, if you do have support up underneath you and you want to take it to the side for this last minute and come into the posture a little deeper. Take your time to adjust. We do want to find stillness, but we also want to make the posture work for us. Very slowly, just going to lift ourselves up just about halfway so that we can let the hips sink into the heels as we pause in our child's pose for a moment. And wherever you want to take the arms, maybe you take the hands next to the feet and just let the shoulders round around the knees here. Perhaps you repeat your mantra again here. I have the courage to face this sorrow. And we're going to come forward toward our tabletop pose. This is one of my very favorite postures. We're going to take our blocks and they're going to come up underneath the shoulders. So I kind of like to angle mine out here toward the edges, the long edges of the mat, so that they're kind of facing up toward the corners here a bit. And you may end up changing the height of the blocks. I typically have mine on the second highest level. So as we come into this, you can experiment with that and see what feels better. But we're gonna take our shoulders to the tops of the blocks here. And as the shoulders come to the tops of the blocks, we'll just let our arms come out to the sides and then just allow for the head to soften down and in here. This is wonderful because it moves into that lung meridian 1. So it's stimulating that acupressure point as well as opening this space through the front of the shoulders here. Soften the jaw and the tongue. And now as our belly is grounding into the earth, can you feel that rise and fall pressing into the earth, that expansion and contraction here? Our next mantra is, I breathe in peace and acceptance. I breathe in peace and acceptance. And then allow yourself to fully feel supported from the ground, the earth beneath you, from these blocks, from your breath. Knowing that it's okay to feel this grief. I've got one more minute here. I breathe in peace and acceptance. And let's very slowly begin to lift our forehead up and away from the earth. And we're going to take our blocks, bring them toward the top of our mat or to the side of our mat. And you can just make a pillow with the hands here. We're going to add in some lower body for just a moment before we move into our next long meridian posture. So let's just begin to draw the right knee up, coming into this half frog leg here. Just getting in a little bit of hip stuff as well. It's always nice to make sure we're balancing out the body. So breathing into this half frog. You could keep a bend into the knee. You could also extend the leg out. Maybe press the knife edge of the foot toward the earth. We're not here for too terribly long. And we'll begin to draw the right leg back in, and we'll switch sides. Start to draw the left knee out. And again, you can keep knee bend, or you can straighten out through your leg here. Noticing if there's a shift in how you're feeling. And just feeling acceptance in whatever that shift is. I breathe in peace and acceptance. And we'll start to draw the left leg back in to meet the right. We're now going to take our right arm, we're going to extend it straight out and over toward the side of our mat. So we're coming into what is called our reverse needle here. So this right arm comes straight out to the side. We'll take our left hand up underneath our left shoulder. We're going to bend into our left knee. And this left foot, and then go ahead and have any other prop you might need before we come all the way over into this. So our left knee is going to bend, and we'll start to bring this left foot, step it over the right leg. If this is too much for you, you could always just let the left knee land in front of you to a block. So take your time, your belly, it might even come up underneath your belly if you need to allow for the belly to roll a little bit more toward the mat. We can always start with the softest sensations, and that is our goal with our yin practice. We start slow and easy, invite those first sensations in, and then we move deeper once the sensations subside. So even if you typically go right into the posture to the fullest expression, maybe you can experiment with just allowing yourself to go really, really slow and easy. You might notice sensations you don't notice when you do go into the fullest expression. And our last mantra here is, my grief will soften with time. How's the breath? And then perhaps you stay, perhaps you go further into the pose, or maybe you back out as we move into this last minute. My grief will soften with time. Let's slow and easy begin to come back toward the belly. If you have a bolster here, you could even just let the knee release back into the bolster if you took it a little further. And then we'll eventually come all the way around to our belly, pausing here for rebound, wherever you'd like to take the arm. Maybe it's under the forehead, the hand, or maybe you bring the arm along the side of the torso. And then we're just going to switch sides. So if you're using a bolster or a block, you can bring it to the other side of your mat. And we'll start to extend the left arm out and over. And we'll start to bring our right hand up underneath our right shoulder. Maybe we lean into support here. So I come into first sensation. My grief will soften with time. How's the breath? Let's take it into this last minute. So maybe you go a little deeper into the pose here. Maybe not. Maybe you hang out where you're at. Maybe you back out of the pose. And very slow, we're gonna come back around to our belly. Take your time. Arm could stay out to the side, or you can bring it along the side of the torso, or underneath the forehead with the hand. Just noticing. We're gonna bring our hands up underneath our shoulders. We'll slowly begin to press toward child's pose, or we will pause for a moment. Hands wherever it feels right. And we're going to start to slowly lift our way up through the crown of the head from here. We're going to start to set ourselves up for this final pose, this final resting pose. So anything you want to bring with you, I like to take the bolster up underneath my knees and then cover up with a blanket from here. And we're just gonna bring ourselves down to a comfortable place. I like to bring the blanket to my belly just to give it a little bit of added weight. Also, wherever you're at, if your space is a little bit cooler, you might want to cover up. And then just feeling this out. How are you feeling on a physical level? How are you feeling emotionally? Just lean into whatever that is here in this moment. Continuing the breath. Feeling the softening. Please stay in this space for as long as you need to, friends. Taking your time. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice, and namaste.